Close to the shores of Africa, a necklace of small green islands floating in warm seas. They're called the Canary Islands, and they're one of the world's favorite tourist destinations. On March the 27th, 1977, two giant aircraft are heading there. The 650 passengers think they're on their way to paradise. They're on the road to hell.
KLM 48 Pan Am.
Their planes are diverted to a small airport on the island of Tenerife. As the day goes by, it becomes more and more choked with planes, and a thick fog sets in. Tension mounts. Passengers and crew are impatient to get to their final destination.
We're going.
Adam 1736, report runway cleared.
Okay, we'll report when we're clear.
To clear then.
What do you say?
Is it to clear the Pan Am?
Oh, yes.
There he is. God damn, that son of a bitch is coming straight at us!
Words cannot adequately describe the horror. 583 people died, the worst air disaster in history. It was all over in seconds. For the handful that lived, they would be the longest and most terrible seconds in their lives.
At first, I thought they had gotten to us with a bomb.
The only thing I could liken it to is if each molecule of air exploded.
I looked in the cabin and everything was on fire.
I thought, oh my God, we're trapped.
We had 28 people in the upstairs lounge. The lounge was no longer on the airplane.
Joan was standing there yelling, "Suzanne, take my hand."
The engines were starting to disintegrate.
I lost Joan's hand very quickly.
I had put my hands over my face and said, Lord, today I'll see you.
It was a survival mode that kicked in, and it was just get out of that airplane.
I said, I will jump and try and break your fall.
The airplane was collapsing in on people.
I immediately thought it was total destruction.
Well, I felt so responsible because I couldn't take care of my passengers, and so helpless in looking back and knowing that there's nothing you can do. You can't get back in the aircraft. There's no way to get in it, and it's all on fire.
Firemen are there for 12 hours trying to put out the flames, but it's a hopeless task. As the news spreads around the world, everyone wants to know, how could two state-of-the-art aircraft possibly be on the same runway at the same time? All those people dead. What had gone wrong? Who was to blame? Only later would they discover the chain of coincidences, mistakes, and misunderstandings that had led to the biggest disaster in the history of aviation. The story begins at midday on the 27th of March. Pan Am Flight 1736 is nearing the Canary Islands. This has been a long, long flight. The plane left Los Angeles via New York the afternoon before. Now the passengers are tired, looking forward to journey's end in the Canaries' capital, Las Palmas.
So, you guys been to the Canaries before? You guys ever visited the Canary Islands?
Yep. I had a great time there. Golden beaches.
Oh.
Grilled fish. Midnight swims.
I could do with that.
But this is the first time I've been routed this way.
Me too.
It's gone quickly. Yeah.
And this particular flight was one of the first ones that was what we named a fly cruise trip. Most of the passengers were retirees. Their destination was Las Palmas. Then they would board a cruise ship and do a 10-day cruise. and then come back, and then they would be picked up again and flown back to the United States.
What no one has told the passengers is the Canary Islands have their own local brand of terrorists. They're determined to get independence from Spain, which actually owns the Canary Islands.
What everyone has to understand is that the Canary Islands are at war. As long as the islands are a colony, they will be at war with Spain. If the Spanish government doesn't agree to our three conditions, we'll launch full armed combat and we'll fight to the very end.
Continuerons la lutte jusqu'à la fin.
Six hours out of New York? I could do it again.
Doesn't time fly when you're having fun?
On board the Pan Am plane are 380 passengers, with 11 flight attendants to look after them.
I was on the flight with my best friend, Suzanne Donovan, and we used to bid flights together, and we could do that. We would, because we enjoyed each other's company so much.
Hey, Susie, save some of that energy for Paris.
Oh, oui.
We're just going to go to Las Palmas and drop off the passengers and ferry the aircraft, which means flying it without any passengers, up to Paris and then stay in Paris.
Few disasters are ever caused by a single event. It takes a chain of tiny coincidences. And so it was that day. Everything is going fine. But at that moment, the terrorists decide to act. And as luck would have it, they choose Gando, the airport for Las Palmas, where the Pan Am plane is due to arrive shortly. Just ahead of the Pan Am is another jumbo jet from the Dutch airline KLM. It too is heading for Gando Airport with 234 Dutch holidaymakers. The captain of the Dutch plane is Jacob van Zanten. He's KLM's star pilot. It's his face that appears in adverts all over the world. Van Zanten is so senior, he hardly flies anymore. When he's not in the photo studio, he's in a simulator training young pilots, like the man in the next seat, Klaas Meurs. He'd personally given Meurs his license, something which Meurs is not likely to forget.
You're just now looking at the arrival information for Gando?
Yeah, I'll program in the alternates as well. We can do the briefing anytime.
For future reference, I don't like to leave it this late in the flight, okay?
I was just rechecking the procedures.
No times to worry about here.
Good. Thank you.
The Dutch passengers are looking forward to journey's end too, but not all of them are going on holiday. 3 are young tour guides who actually live in the Canaries. They've been back to Holland for a seminar and are now returning to their work.
It's true. Back in Holland.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to be getting back to sunny Tenerife. I mean, how many people can say they have banana trees in their back garden?
Yeah, well, a week was just good enough for me. I don't know why they send us back to Holland for those seminars. I mean, really, it's not as if we learn anything. We're not going to suddenly sell more package deals.
Hey, we got a free trip home to see our families. I'm not complaining.
All right. Well, why don't we celebrate our return to the sweet life and paint Las Palmas town red tonight?
Yeah.
You both up for it?
3 of us went to Holland for a week. It was a kind of holiday and work. I lived in Puerto de la Cruz. That's a small village in northwest of Tenerife. Yvonne was traveling with me. Walter was traveling with us. And it was nice to see your colleagues every year. It was a very nice atmosphere on board and a very relaxed atmosphere.
There are many families on the plane taking an Easter vacation break. Among them, 53 children.
There are 2 bombs in the terminal. You have 10 minutes to save as many lives as you wish. We'll talk again.
And so it begins, the first step on the road to disaster. On the Pan Am plane, they know nothing of this. All is relaxed as the flight nears its end.
You have control.
Gando's already dialed in there.
Yeah. Crew, Gando, Las Palmas Airport in 45
minutes.
Ah, sí. Gando, Las Palmas Aeropuerto.
Hombre.
Hand me the arrival info, would you?
For the passengers, a welcome sight. The flight attendants beginning to tidy up in preparation for landing.
Here are your roses. They still look nice and fresh. Oh, lovely. Yes, a friend of mine gave them to me in the airport. I wish somebody would give me roses like that. Here. Oh, take one. I insist.
I had worked very hard, and I was ready for a break. I had great anticipation for what we would see and hear and experience.
For nearly everyone on board, this is the start of something special, the holiday they've always promised themselves.
My husband and I were taking this trip to celebrate our 10th wedding anniversary. It was the first really big trip we've been able to take because we'd been in school forever and didn't have the resources to take a trip like this before.
Atención, este es un mensaje de seguridad. Please leave all your belongings behind and exit immediately. All passengers must leave the terminal immediately. Attention all passengers. Leave all your belongings and exit immediately. All passengers must leave the...
At Gando Airport, the terrorist bomb explodes, badly injuring a shop assistant. Luckily, she's the only victim so far.
Approach.
Security here. We've had an explosion in the terminal and we've been told to expect another. We've got to close the airport now. You need to divert all inbound traffic.
Of course, right away.
Gando, KLM 4805 is with you now. Flight level 350, inbound, request approach.
KLM 4805 Gando, the airport is closed. Divert to Los Olivos Airport via Tenerife VOR. Descent flight level 250.
Well, how do you like that? I'm in serious danger of missing my dinner. 250 for you now.
50.
This diversion is bad news for the Dutch pilots. They're only allowed to fly a certain number of hours, and they still have to get back to Amsterdam.
Gando, Pan Am 1736, good afternoon. We're on flight level 370, 120 miles west, inbound, approach.
Pan Am 1736 Gando, the airport is closed. Divert to Los Olivos Airport via Tenerife VOR. Descent flight level 250.
We filled her up at New York. Asked them if we can wait. What would you say, George? 2 hours up here?
2 hours easy.
Gando, 1736 requests a hold over Las Palmas. We have enough fuel to wait about 2 hours.
Negative, sir. I say again, the airport is closed. We had an explosion in the terminal. There's already a long line of aircraft in front of you. Expect halts at Los Olivos. Contact Canaries approach now on 118.5.
Oh, that's just great.
I think they just had so much traffic to deal with, they didn't have time to even consider giving an airplane clearance to hold or whatever. So that's what I assumed, that they had made up their mind that they were just diverting everyone to Tenerife.
So now both jumbo jets, along with many other aircraft, find themselves heading for Los Rodeos Airport on the island of Tenerife, half an hour away. It turns out to be a regional airport, more used to dealing with light aircraft than Boeing 747s. It has only one runway and about as much parking space as the average supermarket. But it's the only airport within striking distance.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Grubb speaking. We've just been told by air traffic control to land at Tenerife, which is about a half-hour flying time from Las Palmas. Apparently, there are some difficulties in the airport. We're working the radios up here to see if there's a way that we can get you over to Las Palmas just as soon as we can, on the ground. I'll let you know when we have some more information on that. Thank you for your patience.
When they made the announcement that we were not going to be able to land right then at Las Palmas, mostly I was frustrated because it had been a really long trip, and I was tired, and time changes and this and that. So I guess I would say the chief feeling was frustration and sadness that we couldn't immediately disembark and get on a boat.
People were not happy about this because it was not a good omen, you know. It was not a good omen having this take place.
For the air traffic controllers at Los Rodeos, it's not good news either. It's Sunday, and they're short-staffed. In the tower, there are only the two of them. Enough on a normal day, but today there threatens to be as much traffic as a motorway on a bank holiday Monday.
The hell are they thinking? What do they want? That makes 4 planes already and 2 747s on their way. So what have we got? Pan Am 747, KLM 747.
KLM 4805, you are number 3 behind the 737. Report outer marker.
4805, follow the 737, report outer marker. My God, I've seen postage stamps bigger than this place. God, we're gonna get boxed in here. God damn it.
Anyone care to hear about the landing checklist?
Klaas, you're flying. You've got to call the landing checklist.
Landing checklist, please.
Auto brake?
On medium, you never know. Runway short, and on top of it might be slippery. Be careful.
Lima Tango 107, you are clear to descend to flight level 80, holding pattern.
At Los Rodeos, planes are pouring in one after the other.
Sunjet 282, switch to ground now on 118.7.
Sunjet 282, switching to 118.7. Good day.
God damn it. Of all the days this has to happen. Just when Spain is gonna teach Hungary a lesson in football.
I don't know. For sure, it's bad timing. How are we supposed to get all these planes down?
That Sunday, the two controllers find themselves thrust into a situation that's way over their heads. Los Rodeos had never seen so many big aircraft all at once.
Contact standby for taxi clearance. Sunjet will take your place. You can begin your taxi just after it passes behind you. Brake, Spantax, hold on.
Hey, say, where are you gonna put the KLM?
Next to the breathing 737. No choice. Still waiting for the Pan Am 747.
Yeah, but that's 2 large carriers. It won't be easy to handle. You gotta leave some room for these other planes that wanna roll.
Pan Am 1736, leave level 230 now for level 120, call back crossing 180.
The Pan Am plane begins its approach.
1736 cleared to flight level 120, report crossing 180.
The passengers are fed up. After 13 hours in the air, they're wondering when it's all going to end.
Say, why the diversion? Is anything wrong at the airport?
No, just a slight technical difficulty. It'll be cleared up in no time.
Nothing serious?
No, nothing to worry about.
At the back of everyone's minds is, how long is this diversion going to last? Is it going to jeopardize their cruise? Will they miss the boat? Their tour guide reassures them.
Hello, everyone. This is Beau Moss speaking. Ladies and gentlemen, our cruise ship, the Golden Odyssey, has got its engines running and will, I've been told, come out to pick us up if this delay should continue. So it will be just a few minutes longer. Please bear with us.
Auto brake selector on medium? We did the landing checklist.
Auto brakes, medium.
KLM 4805, clear to land runway 30.
Roger, 4805, clear to land 30. perfect this landing. Nice and smooth. Grandma didn't spill her tea. Next time, just get the plane stopped. Don't eat up all the runway. You never know. Okay? Right. I think he wants us to park parallel to the 737. All right. You've got room on my side. You can turn. Stop. Brake here. Stop. All right. That'll do. That'll do. Good, good, good. Los Radios ground. KLM 4805.
4805 ground.
Yes. Any idea how long we're going to be here?
Negative 4805. We're waiting for the word from Gondo.
Well, then, we need to get our passengers in the terminal so they can be more comfortable.
How many passengers do you have on board?
273 passengers. I'd rather not have them in here moaning and complaining.
Roger, we're sending a passenger bus.
Thank you.
But this might only take a few minutes.
Or it could be hours. You want to tell them to stay in there?
The controllers are now stuck in the middle of a traffic jam, the likes of which have never been seen before at this airport. The tarmac is getting bumper to bumper.
Miguel, take a look at this.
Make it fast, man.
We already got 2 aircraft blocking Charlie 1 and Charlie 2. The only option is to start lining them up down here.
Not everyone's gonna make that turn onto Charlie 3.
I already thought about that. We can squeeze the Panam 747 through here.
How do you get them out if we ever do get them out?
We'll have to backtrack them. Taxi down here, turn around, take off. He's gone, do the next one.
We'll be here all night, you know that, right?
Or you can go out there and pave us another runway.
Maybe I do.
Rodeos approach, Pan Am 1736.
There is some method in their madness. Sooner or later, they'll have to get all these aircraft out again. Since all the taxiways are blocked with aircraft, what they propose to do is to use the main runway as a taxiway instead. The planes will take it in turns to taxi down to the far end, turn round, and take off.
Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for this delay. While the flight crew...
The Dutch plane waits on the ramp. Its passengers should be spending this afternoon on the beach. Instead, they learn they're going to spend it hanging around the departure lounge of a small airport.
No. We're going to visit another airport first, Los Rodeos. Then we'll be going to Las Palmas. Okay? Los Rodeos. Yes. Go on. Let's get your shoes on.
It is weird. Robina, Walter and Yvonne actually live and work on this island. So when they eventually get to Las Palmas, they'll have to get another plane to bring them straight back again.
Well, maybe we could get off here.
Yeah, and what about our bags?
You're so materialistic.
Just because you want to see Paul doesn't mean the rest of us have to.
Robina wants to see her boyfriend Paul in Tenerife tonight, not spend it in Las Palmas.
I miss him so much after this week in Holland. I could skip Las Palmas, to be honest with you.
We're moving.
Let's go.
Bye. Bye. See you. Bye-bye. See you soon.
You all right?
Yeah.
You don't look it.
It's not right. There's all these planes. I get a bad feeling about this.
Because of a terrorist bomb explosion, dozens of planes have been diverted to a small airport on the island of Tenerife in the Canaries. One of the first to arrive is a KLM jumbo jet. Its passengers are taken to the terminal. But what with those arriving, those departing, and those, like the Dutch, who are in transit, the little terminal is becoming overwhelmed.
Pan Am 1736, short final for 30.
Pan Am 1736, clear to land, 30.
And now the Pan Am is arriving, just to make matters worse.
1736 at the end of the runway. You have a follow me for taxi instructions. Have you got him inside?
Affirmative, sir.
1736, you will be just behind 3 other planes. Have you got them inside?
Looks a bit tight in there.
1736, be careful of your jet blast. When you turn, there's a plane just next to you.
The ground situation was a traffic jam because when we landed there, the ramp was so crowded with other airplanes, and we were directed to taxi down to the end of the ramp area and park behind 3 other airplanes. And basically that's all we saw, and we didn't know when the airport at Las Palmas was going to open, so we really didn't leave the airplane area, let's say.
By this time, the terminal is so full, there's no room for the Pan Am passengers. They'll have to stay on board their aircraft. After 14 hours stuck inside it, they're not happy.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've authorized a door to be opened and the stair ramp set in place so that anyone who wants can walk down and stretch their legs. Unfortunately, due to the number of other airliners here now, we cannot get near the terminal. I know we've all had a long day already, so I hope that we can get you out of here in about an hour or so. Thank you very much.
They actually allowed us to get off the plane and just to walk downstairs and stand on the tarmac, stretch our legs. I think everybody was getting weary of traveling and ready to start their vacation.
They opened the doors to give us air and we could look out. It was cloudy and overcast. It kept darkening down and was not nice like we had hoped it would be.
Everyone had been expecting tropical sunshine. Instead, it's damp and misty with clouds as far as the eye can see.
I'm worried we're going to get caught by this fog. All we need now is for them to close down that runway.
Yeah, we need them to get a move on, or else we'll be spending the night here, and then hello duty time limits. Any idea of how much longer we've got before we need to get another crew down to take over?
Yeah, well, it says here that the company time limits are 10 hours of flight and an amplitude of 13 hours, and that's with 1 stopover. But if there are 2, it goes down to 9 and 11. But we're allowed to ask for a derogation. Jesus Christ, who writes this stuff here? I'm going to back time from when we have to be back at Schiphol to stay legal, right?
What happens if we go over the civil and company time limits?
Well, you get hung out to dry. You lose your license, your career, everything.
That's it, it's all settled. We can stay here in Tenerife. It's so stupid to go to Las Palmas now. We just have to come back tomorrow. And Paul's waiting. Let's get a taxi.
Hey, slow down. Can't Paul wait another 24 hours?
And they were making plans, you know, we're going to have dinner here, and then we're going to have a drink there, and we just wanted to go back to him.
In the end, it's love that saves Rubina.
I met Rubina in December 1976.
I fell in love, and we've never been
separated.
Not again afterwards.
Why don't I pick up the bags and see you guys and stay together?
Stay. You know, Walter and I actually know how to have a good time without you.
Yeah. You'd just be a drag anyway, thinking about Paul the whole time.
Really? Right. Excuse me.
Is everything all right?
Yes, we're all right. I am a bit peckish, though. Maybe we could get something to eat.
I'm sorry. There is nothing left on board.
Maybe just a cup of coffee and a biscuit?
Not even that. I'm sorry. I really am.
That was a long 4 hours without coffee or pop or anything.
We had no food to serve. We had only the one meal that had been boarded in New York. We'd already served that before landing. That was really all we had to serve.
In the tower, the two controllers are also getting fed up. All the aircraft are in now, so there's nothing to do except listen to the football on the radio and worry. Clouds are gathering over the airport.
Looks like we might have a campana.
Yeah, these clouds are ready to jump down. A little more coastal wind, a drop in temperature, and we'll be covered in clouds.
Better get a move on or they won't be taking off.
Rodeos, Gando.
Rodeos, go ahead.
Gando to Tenerife ATC, we've just reopened. Temperature is 20 degrees. Winds light and variable. Arrivals raining 2-4.
Gando will start sending them your way. We're at 14 degrees, fog and light rain. They'll be glad to get out of here. Let's get started.
Should be tricky getting all these planes in line.
We'll be all right. We'll just have to take it slow.
No doubt about that. I just hope we won't still be here tomorrow.
At last, everyone can leave.
Well, here we go. To all aircraft, Gando is reopened. You can ask for startup and clearances at your discretion.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Gando Airport has reopened. Your flights will be reporting shortly. Please make your way back to the gate as quickly as possible when your flight is called. Thank you for your attention.
Boarding was very complicated because when the passengers were called for their flights, they were scattered throughout the airport, in the cafeteria or buying souvenirs. We had to go around the map, and in fact, some passengers never did board the aircraft.
Okay, right, so we need to leave within the hour, then make it a short stopover at Las Palmas, and we'll stay legal. All right? Willem, since we're trapped in here until the passengers get back, we might as well take on some fuel.
Yeah, no, let's do that at Gando. It's less expensive there, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've got enough to...
There might be many planes wanting fuel at Las Palmas. Huh? Or who knows? We'll be in a hold if Gando closes down again. While I'm sitting here in this seat, I make the decisions.
You might have a point there.
Refueling before they take off will affect everything that happens from now on.
Ramp KLM 4805 requesting refueling.
Yes?
We're going to refuel during passenger boarding. Apply the necessary security measures. Information lights on, toboggans armed for doors without step ladders.
And do you know when we will be in the air again? My crew is starting to wonder about their shift time.
Tell them whatever they like. I'm trying to save us some time here, okay?
Certainly, Captain.
In order to keep the weight down at takeoff, the normal practice is to take on just the amount of fuel you need, plus a margin for safety. But the Dutch captain takes on 55 tons, enough to get him not just to Las Palmas, but all the way back to Amsterdam. That decision will have unexpected consequences for everyone.
KLM 4805, passengers continuing to Las Palmas, Canal Port.
Inside the terminal, all the passengers are called to rejoin their flights, but 2 Dutch children are missing. They've slipped outside to explore.
You go this way, I'll go check the bathroom. Let's meet at the gate in 5 minutes.
All right. Meanwhile, Rabina is trying to get off the KLM flight.
Although I do understand your wish to stay.
Yes, this is where I'm coming tomorrow, so there's no point in me going all the way back to Las Palmas.
Yes, I guess this is just against company rules, and as much I would like to help you, I'm afraid you must take this pain.
I guess you can't change the rules just for me. But there's no harm in trying, right?
Have a nice day.
Thanks.
KLM might not be willing to bend their rules, but Rabina decides to bend them anyway.
Problem? Kind of.
What?
But I'm staying anyway. They'll just have to arrest me.
I'll pick up the bags for you.
Thanks. I'll walk to the door with you guys so that my friend here thinks I'm taking the plane.
Let's go.
Come on.
Well, they wanted me to go with them. And they really tried to persuade me, and I tried to persuade them to stay. You know. And, yeah, but that's how it goes.
Fortune had smiled upon Robina van Lanschot. Of the 234 passengers on her flight, she would be the only one left alive.
The temperature is 14 and falling. The dew point is 12, not a good sign. The visibility is going to drop like a rock. Weather. Hi guys, it's Fernando. What's the current visibility? Got it. Keep us posted if it changes, okay? In the meantime, we're going to let them go.
The controllers need to move quickly before the weather closes them down. But some planes can't move.
Rodeos ground. Pan Am 1736 request clearance. Las Palmas latest weather and taxi instructions.
1736, there is a delay for you. The KLM in front of you is refueling.
Oh, come on, let's try to get around him. But there's going to be a revolt back there if we don't get moving soon.
Ground, we'll try to sneak past him here.
The Pan Am captain does his best. He starts his engines and tries to squeeze past. But a 747 is nearly 200 feet long. It's not built for squeezing.
Not enough room.
George, why don't we get a breath of fresh air and take a look?
The engineer and I went out underneath the right wing and basically stepped off the distance between our wingtip and the KLM 747's wingtip, and we were 12 feet short of being able to taxi easily around the airplane.
For the sake of 12 feet, hundreds of lives are going to be lost.
Did you notice that when we were coming in?
The volcano, amazing, isn't it? Legend has it the devil himself lives on Mount Teide. 12,000 feet, highest point in Spain. It's always in the clouds.
You must get socked in here all the time.
Yeah, warm, moist air comes screaming across the Atlantic, hits this island, gets cooled down, and wham, you're in the soup.
And the tourists start screaming.
KLM 4805, this is Pan Am 1736.
What's on to you?
We're stuck behind you guys. Have you got any idea as to what time you'll be rolling?
35 minutes. KLM out.
He hung up.
Oh. Nice man. We're stuck behind him, that's all he's got to say.
What an ass.
On the KLM, more frustration.
That's the count. We're missing 4. It must be the family from row 33.
All right. I'll let you tell the captain. I'll help prepare the cabin for takeoff.
Gee, thanks.
I know. Roberto, you have to find them. Please, hurry up. Please.
Captain,
Yes. What is it now?
we're missing 4 passengers.
We have 273 passengers back there who will be spending the night in here if we don't get moving. Now, unless you want to be locked in there with them, I suggest you get over to the terminal and drag them in here now!
On the Pan Am plane, the passengers have had enough. Most of them left home some 18 or 20 hours previously. They've been up all night, stuck in an airplane seat. They're tired, jet-lagged, and they understand less and less why all these other planes seem to be taking off, but not them.
My friends, I know it's been a trying afternoon for all of us. But when we are finally on board the Golden Odyssey, you will be pampered day and night. Your own private telephone will give you access to room service at all hours. A twist of the button will give you just the right temperature. queen-size beds will make you forget these airplane seats.
Miss, I can see the other planes are taking off. What's the holdup? I mean, we were here longer than those other planes.
We'll be leaving in just a moment.
Keep thinking of Paris, I guess.
You can keep thinking about it.
Yep.
Moulin Rouge, maybe?
The old Moulin Rouge.
Dancing girls?
Dancing girls.
Da, 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 ya, pa, 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 pa. Ya, ya, pa, 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 pum.
Da, 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 da,
Ay, ya, pa, 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 pa. Dum, 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 pa, pa, whoop, pa, 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 pa.
da, bum, bum, bum.
You ever get there?
We get there.
Around about this time, the ground controller, Roberto, manages to find the two missing Dutch children.
Where have you been? Come on.
Hurry up. They're only waiting for you to take off.
He takes them back to their plane, and as it happens, to their deaths.
I'll never forget that. If I hadn't found them, they'd be alive today. But was it destiny?
Station calling to start.
Ground. KLM 4805 is ready for startup.
4805, clear to start.
Checklist before startup. Plane free, blocks in place, doors shut and checked. Ready for startup in sequence 1, 2, 3, 4.
Affirmative, ready on 1.
The KLM pilots start their engines one by one and prepare to go back out onto the runway for takeoff. If the weather were good, there'd be no problem at all. But everything is changing rapidly, and for the worse.
That's in company here. Visibility is right down.
We've fallen from 10 to 3 kilometers in the past half hour. But there's good wind. There will be some hole.
Yeah, but let's face it, the weather's not going to get any better.
Approach 4805 requires backtrack on runway 12 for takeoff on 30.
Taxi straight ahead to end of runway and make a backtrack.
Roger, make a backtrack. 4805 is now on the runway.
The KLM is now back on the runway. The Pan Am prepares to follow them a few hundred meters behind, through the fog, which is getting thicker by the minute.
Pan Am 1736, ready to start.
Pan Am 1736, you are clear to start.
Thank you.
Please make sure your seat belts are fastened, your tray tables are closed, and your hand baggage is stowed beneath the seat in front of you.
The weather's taking a real dive here.
Yeah, looks like we're getting sucked in. Hey, ask him to turn down the fog machine, will you?
Pan Am 1736, clear to taxi on runway, following the KLM.
Pan Am 1736, following KLM.
Basically, our instructions were to follow KLM, to backtrack down the runway. Now, backtrack means that you're taxiing down the runway in the opposite direction of the takeoff, following KLM.
335 tons of Boeing 747 turn out onto the runway. At first, traveling at about 15 kilometers an hour, but not for long.
A fog bank started on the right hill. This particular airport is situated between two fairly big hills. And we saw the fog bank come off of the right hill and proceed down and stop right on the runway. So our visibility went from unlimited to 500 meters. We lost sight of the KLM airplane.
I'll have 2 planes sailing on the runway.
Keep some healthy separation. Visibility is dropping every second.
Yeah, they can't see much out there.
They certainly can't. The KLM plane is groping its way through fog.
Can barely see the pavement. We're down to 50 knots ground speed, Scott.
Taxi checklist.
This is a nightmare. We'll never make the limits at this rate. And I really don't want to be spending the night at Las Palmas. I'll give headquarters a call.
Taxi checklist.
Please.
EPR, ADI, safety compass.
Compared and checked. Okay, we're massing 200 tons with 55 tons of fuel. The parameters are checked and verified by myself. Rolling checklist completed.
The 2 aircraft are following each other on the same runway, but no one can see a thing. Everyone is nervous, especially the American pilots. They know that before long, the KLM will turn round and come back down the runway at full speed, taking off. They have to get off the runway, but where?
Pan Am 1736.
Pan Am 1736, approach.
We were also instructed to taxi down the runway, is that correct?
Affirmative. Taxi into the runway. And leave the runway third. Third to your left.
Third to the left, okay.
Third, he said?
3.
Third to your left.
I thought he said
leave the
first.
runway third to your left. Third to your left.
Left turn.
Look at it out there. I mean, this cloud just rolled right onto us. I don't think anybody has the minimums now.
In a 747, the pilots are more than 10 meters off the ground. It's very difficult to see out. And it's built to fly, not to drive down a highway in thick fog, trying to find an exit.
Tell me what you think, George.
No. We've got centerline markings only. We need 800 meters visibility if we don't have the lights.
Anytime you get a low visibility, such as that, on the back of the approach plates, you have the runway information. It gives you the minimum visibility you must have to be able to take off. We turned our charts over, and it said RVR, minimum 700 meters visibility. So we assumed that with that, he'd just given us 500 meters. We couldn't take off.
My feet are killing me.
Something tells me this isn't going to be over anytime soon.
KLM 4805, how many taxiway did you pass?
I think we just passed Charlie 4 right now.
Okay, at the end of the runway, make 180 and report. Report for ATC clearance.
Okay, sir. Tell me, is centerline lighting available for 4805?
I don't think so. Stand by, I will check.
The Pan Am is still traveling along the runway behind them, but very slowly now, because the pilots are confused. They thought they might have misheard the controller. Did he say the third exit, or was it the first?
The first one was a 90-degree turn.
Yeah, okay.
This one down here is a 45. It must be the third.
But this third exit seems to be an impossible turn for a 747. There must be some mistake. The logical exit is the next one, Charlie 4. It's only a 45-degree angle and leads to where they want to go.
I'll ask them again. Would you confirm that you want Pan Am 1736 to turn left at the third intersection?
The third one, sir. 1, 2, 3. Third one.
1, 2.
Good, well, that's what we need, right? The third one.
1, 2, 3.
All right.
1736, report runway clear.
Pan Am 1736.
We couldn't see any taxiways. We couldn't see barely the center line of the runway we were taxiing on, but we knew that the 45-degree angle to the left was the taxiway we were supposed to take.
1 kilometer ahead and out of sight in the fog, the KLM is nearing the end of the runway.
4805 and Pan Am 1736, for your information, the center line lighting is out of service.
4805, we copied that.
Why am I not surprised? Wouldn't make any much difference anyway. You need a bunch of searchlights to punch a hole through this mess.
Back in the control tower, things are becoming stressful too. For several minutes, they've been unable to see either of these two big jumbo jets on the runway. They don't have ground radar like a big airport. To all intents and purposes, they're working blind.
I lost them. I can't see no visual contact. I hate working like this, blind when the planes are on the ground. Even they don't know where they are.
They're doing well, David. There's good separation distance.
Pan Am 1736 approach. Position, please.
1736, just checking that...
That's the 45 there.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's this one here.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, the next one is almost a 45.
Yeah, but it goes... Yeah, but it goes ahead. I think it'll take us to the taxiway.
Yeah, just a little bit, yeah.
Okay, for sure.
Maybe he counts these as 3.
Oh, I like this.
On the KLM, Captain Van Zanten knows that he is now very close to the minimum visibility for takeoff. There's a good chance he's going to be trapped on the ground, forced to spend the night at Los Rodeos. Not an enticing prospect.
Christ, bloody weather. Klaus, give me takeoff speeds.
Yeah, okay. The V1 will be 120 knots and the VR is 135 knots. I'm preparing the frequencies, 139 and 138.7.
Lights on?
Affirmative. Strobes as well.
Of course, the people in the back have no idea about any of this. The way that everything is clicking into place.
That's it. Just one last hop and we'll be there, okay?
Goody. Is it going to be a long holiday?
Just like last year.
The only thing which might alert them is the fact that the view from their windows is now down to just a few dozen meters.
Where's the wing gone?
It's hidden by the fog.
What? A frog? A big green frog?
Don't be silly, just calm down.
But...
Chewing gum to pop your ears.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
I wonder if Rubina will have a good time tonight.
Oh, are you worrying about her? Oh, she always manages to have a good time.
That's true.
At the end of the runway, the plane begins its 180-degree turn.
How many have taken off now? Feels like we've been taxiing for hours. I can't see anything. Do you think they can see any better out the front?
Maybe, yeah.
No? There's a lot of fog out there.
It's just after 5 p.m. The two aircraft are now face to face, a kilometer apart, unable to see each other in the fog.
Okay, we're on the numbers now. Can't be far from the threshold. You can just about see the white center line.
I've left the body gear on to help you turn around. I've got 8 greens for the undercarriage.
Wipers on.
Lights are on.
I said wipers on.
All right, there you go.
Okay, we have 700 meters visibility here now.
Wait a minute. We don't have ATC clearance.
I know that. Go ahead, ask.
KLM 4805 is now ready for takeoff. We're waiting for ATC clearance.
KLM 4805, you're clear to the Papa Beacon.
ATC clearance is the route the aircraft intends to take once it's left Los Rodeos, but it's not permission to take off. That has to be obtained separately.
Las Palmas VOR.
Roger, sir. We're cleared to the Papa Beacon, flight level 90. Right turn out 040 until intercepting the 325. We're
going.
No!
Stand by for takeoff, I will call you.
And we're still taxiing down the runway. Pan Am 1736.
Pan Am 1736, report runway clear.
Okay, we'll report when we're clear.
Thank you, 1736.
He asked us, were we off the runway? And I responded back, negative. We are still on the runway, but we will report clear of the runway. That was the last thing I said over the radio.
Let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah, he's anxious, isn't he? Yeah, and now he's in a rush.
We were only taxiing at 3 miles an hour. Nothing in my mind would have even given me the thought that he was taking off.
Isn't to clear that?
What do you say?
Isn't to clear that Pan Am?
Oh, yes.
The die is cast. With every second, the KLM is going faster and faster. At the same moment, the Pan Am reaches the number 4 exit and begins to turn off the runway.
God damn, that son of a bitch is coming straight at us!
When he hit us, I didn't think he'd done us that much damage because the airplane very quickly shuddered.
The first thing was this huge, loud noise, and the only thing I could liken it to is as if each molecule of air exploded. That's the way I thought of it afterwards. It just was so loud.
At first, I thought they had gotten to us the bomb, and it came up and slammed down. The lights went out, and flames came through. I had put my hands over my face and said, Lord, today I'll see you.
The minute I opened my eyes, I looked in the cabin and everything was on fire.
All the windows were going in the cockpit. I looked out to the right wing was on fire. I looked back to the left. We had 28 people in the upstairs lounge. The lounge was no longer on the airplane. It was just a big hole there. And I could see all the way to the tail of the airplane, just like someone had taken a big knife and cut the top off.
People were just sitting in their seats. They weren't moving. I don't know why.
Yeah, in normal circumstances, you're supposed to wait for a command, but it was clear you didn't need to wait for a command in this situation.
There was fire, and I shouted to Suzanne, fire on the wing.
She ran back to my exit
and saw Suzanne standing there, getting ready to open the door, and just saw the door crumple like cheap tinfoil. And I thought, oh my God, we're trapped.
I was staring at the door, and I yelled, unfasten your seatbelts, remove your shoes, leave everything, come this way. And as I stared at the door, a jagged hole seemed to open up in the roof over the door.
And the next thing I knew, I was outside that. I don't know how I got out there.
Joan was standing there yelling, Suzanne, take my hand.
And I was standing above the level of the door on fuselage rubble pieces. And I leaned down and said to Suzanne, give me your hand.
She grabbed me out with one hand. I mean, I don't know how she lifted me.
And then we were standing up on top of almost on top of this airplane. And I thought, it's really a long ways down. If we jump, we're gonna break our legs.
We were on debris. It was like ice flows, big chunks of fuselage kind of moving all around.
The engines were starting to disintegrate already. We could hear them disintegrating and throwing metal.
I lost Joan's hand very quickly, so I jumped. And it seemed like the leap from a second-story building.
The captain, he elected to jump down in the first-class section of the airplane. And when he hit the first-class floor, the floor collapsed and he fell on down into the cargo area. It was so hot that the oxygen bottles exploded and burned him very badly, as a matter of fact.
It was a survival mode that kicked in, and it was just get out of that airplane. I didn't stop to think about how it happened.
I went to where the door would have been, and I left my wife seated. And then it came to me, what am I doing? Where's my wife? So I turned around, and she was coming, and I said, I will jump and try and break your fall.
My husband was sitting to my right, and I undid his seatbelt and kind of pushed him out of his seat to get him moving. And we headed for the door that was closest to us. And it was engulfed in flames, and there was no way to exit that way. I looked over, and at some point, someone had opened the other door, which was amazing to me. And I just yelled over here and headed toward the door on the other side, which was, again, the wing door.
In the haste to get out of the burning plane, Karen became separated from her husband. He died in the flames.
I immediately thought it was total destruction. It never dawned on me that I would make it. But I thought, hey, you know, do something. Don't just sit there, do something. I just went over the seat backs, and I'm not that athletic really, but I went over 3 rows of seats. One man was sitting there looking like I need help, but I couldn't help him.
When KLM hit us, all communication stopped. The tower called and couldn't get any response from either the KLM or ourselves. There was an airplane in the holding pattern right above Tenerife. Called the tower and said, I see smoke and wreckage on your runway.
Rodeos approach Sterling 105. We're downwind from runway 30 and something's glowing on the field. Looks like a fire. Are you aware of any fire?
Shit, this can't be true! Come on, come on! Come on, come on!
He hits the emergency warning. After KLM hit us, he went on down the runway and hit on the runway 1,500 feet down, closer to the tower. So when the fire truck and the ambulance came out, they got to him first. So no one came to us for quite a while. As a matter of fact, I remember thinking, I wonder why somebody hasn't gotten out here to help us.
It's complete bedlam. In the fog, the fire trucks don't know where to go. When they eventually find the Dutch plane, it's hopeless. Everyone's dead. And the whole time, they don't realize there's a second plane a short distance away, hidden in the mist, with people waiting to be saved. It's another 20 minutes before the Pan Am plane is discovered. Only 20% of the Pan Am passengers get out alive, and most of them are gathered on the left wing, which has somehow miraculously remained intact.
The entire left wing of the airplane was covered with passengers. And it turned out there were probably 45 to 50 passengers out on that wing.
I've never asked anybody how high the wing is from the ground on a 747, but it looks to be a very long ways.
And I cut open my head and fractured my foot. My wife jumped after me, and she said, I cannot walk. And I dragged her on her side for probably a block and a half away from the plane.
The motors were going full tilt, and I didn't want to get over where the motors were, so I sat down by the body of the plane. I had no comprehension at that moment that I would be jumping off the wing and...
In the debris, you knew there were trapped passengers and people, and there was absolutely nothing you could do to help because the airplane was collapsing in on people.
Only one door was opened by a crew member, and that was one of the black flight attendants who did that. And she lost her life when the engine disintegrated. and debris hit her. And I thought if we could just walk around to the other side of the plane, we would find all of the passengers and our other fellow crew members. Which, of course, wasn't the case.
Even 20 minutes after the disaster, the controllers in the tower still have no idea how serious things are.
Departing aircraft. All departures are suspended until advised. Hello.
I'll get local fire out here. Notify the ambulance. We have an emergency. We need every vehicle they've got.
What have we done? This can't be our fault. I mean, I told him to clear the taxiway.
When I got out on the ground, I could hear people screaming and yelling and all. Within about 5 minutes, you heard absolutely nothing. There was no noise at all, just the airplane burning. I asked one of our medical directors later on what he calls that, and he said that when you have a fire that hot and that much of a fire, it consumes all of the oxygen in there, and people basically suffocate.
I felt so responsible because I couldn't take care of my passengers, and so helpless in looking back and knowing that there's nothing you can do. You can't get back in the aircraft. There's no way to get in it, and it's all on fire.
Of the KLM plane, very little remains. It had continued flying for another 400 meters before slamming into the ground. The 55 tons of fuel it had taken on ensured that everyone on board died in the fiery explosion.
It was personal vehicles, cars and trucks that seemed to come onto the grass and gather up people.
About 75% of our surviving passengers got to the hospital in taxicabs.
It was a wild, crazy ride as we were going to the hospital. The skin was hanging on both hands because I had received burns, but it hadn't affected my eyes.
I had blood all over me, and I walked up to somebody and said, "I'm a doctor, can I help?" And the guy that I said it to had the oddest look on his face, just this very wan smile, and he just shook his head, and then I immediately went into a coma.
Word soon gets out, and in the hours that follow, the international press begin to arrive, and the first news is flashed around the world.
Rescue workers are still going through the wreckage of the two jetliners this morning in the Canary Islands. They're looking for the bodies of victims in this worst accident in aviation history. Two jumbo jetliners, 747s, collided on the ground at the airport at Santa Cruz de Tenerife yesterday morning.
One was a Pan Am charter from Los Angeles that picked up more people in New York before flying to the Canaries. The other was a KLM charter from Amsterdam in the Netherlands.
They set up a morgue in one of the hangars, and it was huge, and they had all of the nearly 600 bodies in that particular hangar, or temporary morgue.
The death toll rises to 583 people, nearly twice as big as any previous accident. And then everyone begins asking the same questions. How and why could two state-of-the-art airliners smash into each other on the same runway? Very soon, a whole army of investigators begins arriving from the three countries involved, Spain, Holland, and the United States. Under the rules that govern this sort of thing, they all have a right to be there, but that doesn't mean they're going to get along. In Spain, the military still runs everything, including aviation. When the American team from the National Transportation Safety Board arrives, the Spanish general in charge won't even let them into the room.
I sneaked in, and I went to the general and told him, the general, my name is Luis Carmona. I represent the U.S. government, the NTSB, and I am here to participate in the investigation. He answered back to me, I represent the king, and you get out. So as I was walking out, he looked at me again and he said, hey, you don't look American. And I told him, well, yes, I am an American, but I was born in Cuba. And he said, well, so did I. I was also born in Cuba. So he turned around and he asked me questions and asked me to bring my team in, and we started doing the accident investigation then.
The investigators discover the chain of coincidences that had led remorselessly to the deaths of 583 people. If any one of them had not occurred, neither would the accident. The first had nothing to do with airplanes, a terrorist bombing perpetrated by a small group fighting for their independence. Their intent was to create publicity for their cause. In that, they certainly succeeded.
There are 2 bombs in the terminal. You have 10 minutes to save as many lives as you wish.
The airport is closed. Divert to Los Rodeos Airport via Tenerife VOR. Descent flight level 250.
Because of the bomb, all air traffic was rerouted to Los Rodeos Airport on the neighboring island of Tenerife. But it's a small regional airfield with only one runway. A 747 can land there. The runway is long enough, but that's all. The airport is ill-equipped and unable to handle that amount of planes or people.
Lima Tango 107, you are clear to descend to flight level 80.
Subject 282, switch to ground now.
Contact standby for taxi clearance. KLM 4805, clear to land runway 30. Pan Am 1736.
Pan Am 1736, short final.
As luck would have it, this tidal wave of traffic happens on a Sunday afternoon, when there are just 2 controllers on duty. They're good, but not used to handling as many airplanes as on that day. Big airplanes that need lots of room to park. They are confronted with an enormous jigsaw puzzle.
We'll be here all night, you know that, right?
Or you can go out there and take us to another runway.
Meanwhile, in the KLM cockpit, the stress is mounting.
Any idea of how much longer we've got before we need to get other crew down to take over?
Yeah, well,
KLM had recently introduced new company rules which handed out severe penalties for pilots who exceeded their flying hours.
What happens if we go over the civil and company time limits?
well, you get hung out to dry. You lose your license, your career, everything.
The KLM plane has to get away before 5:30 that afternoon or abandon the flight. Hundreds of passengers would then have to be found hotels on this small island. A new crew would have to be flown in from Amsterdam. The expense would be enormous.
Willem, since we're trapped in here until the passengers get back, we might as well take on some fuel.
But that seemingly simple decision seals the fate of everyone aboard the KLM. Refueling not only delays him for half an hour and the Pan Am stuck behind him, it makes the KLM plane so heavy it'll be unable to lift off and clear the Pan Am plane on the runway. The half-hour delay has another effect. During that time, the weather changes abruptly. Los Rodeos is an unusual airport. It's on a plateau high in the hills.
Los Rodeos Airport is at 2,000 feet elevation, and the normal clouds in that area, they stay about 2,000 feet. So when the wind blows the clouds over the airport, it closes the airport. The visibility goes to 0. And it goes on and off all the time.
Unfortunately, for an airport that's constantly lost in fog, Los Rodeos is ill-equipped to deal with it. It has no ground radar so that controllers can see where the planes are. In fact, the facilities are downright primitive.
When he was not, they had a person sitting in a building next to the runway, and he just took a visual measurement of the weather, and that's how the weather was checked. And that's about all.
In the fog that day, Both aircraft are invisible to the controllers.
I lost them. I can see no visual contact.
There are no runway center lights working either. Visibility is on the borderline of what is safe. In fact, as far as the Pan Am crew is concerned, it's below the legal minimum, so no aircraft can take off.
Look at it out there. I mean, this cloud just rolled right onto us. I don't think anybody has the minimums now.
But the Dutch are working to a different set of rules. The scene is all set for a disaster. What will actually trigger it? The Dutch investigators thought they'd found the reasons.
God damn it. Of all the days this has to happen, just when Spain is going to teach Hungary a lesson in football.
The controllers, they say, were listening to the football on the radio. Perhaps their minds weren't on the job. Furthermore, their bad English had confused the pilots.
Taxi into the runway. And leave the runway third. Third to your left.
Third to the left, okay.
Third, he said?
3.
Third. Third to your left.
I thought he said
leave the
first.
runway third to your left. Third one, sir. 1, 2, 3. Third one.
1, 2.
Good, well, that's what we need, right? The third one. 1, 2, 3.
We were listening to the controller talking to the other airplanes. We were listening to the controller giving the ATC clearances, the taxi clearances. And he spoke clear enough English for anyone, I think. So I'd have to say no, I don't think the controller was involved at all. I don't think he had any fault at all in this accident.
1736, just checking with that.
That's the 45 there.
But the Dutch haven't finished yet.
Yeah, that's this one here.
Yeah, I know.
They make an even more controversial claim, one that provokes a blazing row, that the Pan Am plane had caused the accident by being on the runway when it shouldn't have been. They hadn't followed orders to turn off.
Okay, for sure.
Maybe he counts these as 3.
Oh, I like this.
They were going to taxiway 4. He was instructed to go on 3, but he had to go 4 because taxiway number 4 was the one that had 45 degrees. And it was easy for the 747 to access it.
We said, confirm which taxiway you want to take. And he says, the third on your left, 1, 2, 3, the third on your left. And here again, I still believe this. I think he had seen us go by the first one. And when he says, count 3 more taxiways, the third, 1, 2, 3, we were doing exactly what we thought he meant for us to do. And I still think that's what he meant for us to do. It was the logical taxiway to take.
Whether they should have taken the third or fourth exit became largely irrelevant anyway, because it became clear that Captain Van Zanten had made one of the most elementary mistakes a pilot can make. He'd taken off without permission.
We have 700 meters visibility here now.
Wait a minute. We don't have ATC clearance.
I know that. Go ahead, ask.
KLM 4805 is now ready for takeoff. We're waiting for ATC clearance.
KLM 4805, you're clear to the Papa Beacon.
The KLM is given its ATC clearance, which is simply the route it must follow after takeoff. Now, it must wait for permission to take off.
325 radial at Las Palmas VOR.
Roger, sir. We're cleared to the Papa Beacon, flight level 90. Right turn out 040 until intercepting the 325. We're
going.
But why didn't his crew stop him?
It's very difficult for a co-pilot or a flight engineer to tell the captain, hey, look, you missed something.
Tenerife exposed a problem that had long existed in commercial air travel. The pilot was regarded, and often regarded himself, as God.
The captain is always right. He's never wrong.
No junior officer was ever going to contradict the airline's top pilot, the man who'd given him his license.
Panam 1736, report runway cleared.
Did you clear that?
What do you say?
Is it to clear the Panam?
Oh, yes.
Captain Van Zanten, highly stressed, knowing that he has to take off or abandon the flight. His crew, aware that he's done wrong but frightened to tell him. Disaster is now inevitable.
God damn.
The official report is written by Spain. It blames the accident on Captain Van Zanten's decision to take off without permission. The Dutch refuse to accept it. They publish their own report, blaming language difficulties and the general confusion at Los Rodeos.
What I learned from the Tenerife accident is that regardless of how well qualified, experienced, professional, and exact professional you are, okay, accidents, as long as human beings are involved, accidents can always take place.
The insurers pay out a record sum, $2 billion in today's money. As for the survivors, the images of the 27th of March will always be with them. They've just learned to live with them, that's all.
And whenever I have friends that travel, I tell them, make sure you know where your exit is, make sure you read all that stuff, know how to get out of the airplane. I mean, those are important things.
I never had nightmares. I had only dreams about being helpless and being at an airport behind a big, thick window and watching an airplane take off and knowing that it was going to crash and wanting to shout out, but there was this big, thick glass window. You're just helpless, and that's what you feel, is this, because our responsibility is to take care of everyone, and that's what we want to do, and we couldn't do it. We couldn't save them.
The loss of my husband had a tremendous impact on my life, on my son's lives, on my extended family's lives. It was huge.
And you can see how strange life is, you know, that things like that happen, that you get off and they go on, and perhaps if the plane left a minute later, it wouldn't have happened.
I think it brought home to me how quickly you can leave this life and how everyone should enjoy life every and each day as much as you possibly can.
Well, after the crash, I decided to start a family. I thought maybe I will stay home and have children.
I thought, you know, my friends have died, and if I let myself sit in this little apartment, it's going to be as if I'm curled up and died, and that's not fair to them. I can honor them best by living a life, a full life, and not being afraid.
I am blessed because I do not have any horror left over from the accident.
I felt ashamed the first while. And a long time I thought, you know, I wish I died, because I felt very bad.
I was scared for quite a while after the crash, but I knew if I flew with Joan, she would pull me out again.
I had to quit the NTSB. I didn't retire. I felt so bad that I became ill. I had to go to a doctor and get some medication because I got sick.
I went back to Tenerife, my wife and I had a driver take me out to the airport and show me the runway, and I looked at it all. I did it all over again. And then I went back and took the Golden Odyssey steamship from the Royal Cruise Line to sort of complete the situation which I had missed.
In the cabin, the flight attendants and passengers have no idea that their plane is dangerously low on fuel.
Then the go-around procedure is stating that the power be applied slowly.
In the cockpit, the crew now hastily discuss the go-around procedure, what the manual says they must do if they can't find the runway through the fog and low clouds and have to go around a second time. It's standard procedure.
Power be applied slowly and to avoid rapid accelerations and to have a minimum of nose-up attitude.
To maintain what? Minimum nose-up attitude. That means...
Flight engineer Moyano is concerned that if the captain were to pull up the plane's nose too sharply, all the remaining fuel would slosh to the back of the tank, causing engines to stop.
Covered on fuel during the go-around. What it means is it doesn't contain fuel for feeding itself, and a flameout could occur. And it is necessary to lower the nose again.
Right now we are proceeding to the airport inbound. We have 17 miles.
Roger.
This means we'll have hamburger tonight.
Avianca, descend and maintain 3,000.
Descend and maintain 3,000. Avianca 052 Heavy.
3,000 feet. They got us. They're already vectoring us.
No, they are descending us.
They are giving us priority.
Avianca 052 Heavy, contact Kennedy Tower 119.1. Good day.
Only minutes before landing, Flight 52 is handed off to a JFK tower controller whose shift is about to end.
Avianca 052 Heavy, Kennedy Tower 22 left. Your number 3 following 727 traffic on a 9-mile final.
Avianca 052 Heavy, roger.
Can I lower the landing gear yet?
No, I think it's too early. If we lower the landing gear, we have to maintain a very high nose attitude.
So desperately low is their fuel that the first officer wants to delay putting down the landing gear, which will increase the aircraft's drag, requiring more power and using more of what little fuel they have remaining.
I was so happy. For me, it was like a joy. I mean, we're going to land soon, and this is going to be end.
Avianca 052, what is your airspeed?
Avianca 052, 140 knots.
Avianca 052, can you increase your airspeed 10 knots?
10?
Okay, 10 knots, increasing.
Increase, increase.
10 knots more.
Tell me things louder because I'm not hearing it. Lower the gear.
Gear down.
Avianca 052, 22 left, wind 190 at 20, cleared to land.
Clear to land, Avianca 052 Heavy. Wind check, please.
190 at 20.
With the weather deteriorating and flying on fumes, the crew of Flight 52 will have only one chance of getting their 149 passengers safely on the ground.
Avianca 052, say airspeed.
145 knots.
Are we cleared to land now?
Yes, sir, we are clear to land.
Stand by. Flaps 50. Landing checklist complete.
It was extremely important that Avianca 52 landed on their first approach JFK. The voice recorder revealed that the captain was certainly quite concerned about the fuel state, and he was talking aggressively with the first officer, putting out flaps, getting the airplane configured.
It was time for the flight engineer to say, this is the only approach we're going to be able to make, and he didn't.
Give me 50.
Flaps 50 now.
All set for landing.
Standing by for lights. Slightly below glide slope. 1,000 feet above field. Instruments cross-checked, slightly below.
Stand by for lights.
Stand by.
The wind is slightly from the left, 190 to 20. Below glide slope.
With about 10 minutes of fuel remaining and nearly 4 kilometers from the runway, Flight 52 finds itself flying into violent wind shear, forcing them to slow the plane down.
They were getting like 60 knots of wind on the nose, and then as they descended on down through about 500 feet to the ground, they were down to 20 knots. So that's 40 knot change and 1,000 feet of elevation. That's a lot.
This is the wind shear.
Now the wind changes direction. It's pressing them down towards the ground.
Glide slope!
Glide slope.
Sink rate
Glide
500
slope.
feet.
Glide slope.
The captain desperately searches for the runway, but it's shrouded in low clouds and fog.
Terrain.
Lights!
The runway, where is it?
I don't see it. I don't see it.
The plane's warning system is telling them that they're about to crash.
Glide slope! Sink rate 500 feet.
Just 4 kilometers from touchdown, Flight 52 has been caught in violent wind shear. To save the plane, Captain Caviedes applies full throttle, burning up more of the plane's precious fuel.
Give me the landing gear up, landing gear up!
The airplane was about 200 feet above the ground, about 2 miles from the runway, which was well below the glide slope, and very dangerous. So the airplane almost crashed on its first approach.
When you get a missed approach, now it changes the whole ball game.
Request another traffic pattern.
Executing a missed approach. Avianca 052 Heavy.
The operation of pulling the plane up in the missed approach was a very violent one.
I don't know what happened with the runway. I didn't see it.
I didn't see it either. I didn't see it.
Avianca 052, you were making a left turn, correct, sir?
Tell him we are in emergency.
2,000 feet. That's right, to 180 on the heading, and we'll try once again. We are running out of fuel.
Okay.
What did he say?
I already advised him that we are going to attempt again.
Advise him we are in an emergency. Do you tell him?
Yes, sir, I already advised him.
But the tower controller, at the end of his shift, transfers Avianca 52 to his counterpart in approach control. They'll have to begin all over again.
Contact approach on 118.4.
Approach, Avianca 052 Heavy. We just missed a missed approach, and we are maintaining 2,000.
Flaps 14.
Avianca 052 Heavy, New York.
Good evening. Climb and maintain 3,000.
Advise him we don't have fuel.
Climb and maintain 3,000. We are running out of fuel, sir.
Okay, fly heading 080.
Did you already advise him we don't have fuel?
Yes, sir, I already advised him. We are going to maintain 3,000, and he's going to get us back.
As they get back in the pattern and circle the field and come back in again. That again adds to the traffic jam that was being created at Kennedy Airport.
Avianca 052 Heavy,
I'm going to turn you about 15 miles northeast and then bring you back onto the approach.
Is that okay with you and your fuel?
What did he say?
The guy is angry.
I guess so. Thank you very much.
These guys were out, and they didn't say we were out. And he allowed the approach control to vector him way out in the original pattern and 15 miles north of the outer marker again.
Flight 52 was instructed to fly a long approach pattern for another landing attempt. The plane is down to its last dregs of fuel as the crew waits for final clearance from ground controllers.
And then they were run way out towards Long Island and vectored all around, which was equivalent to holding for another 15, 20 minutes.
Did you get clearance yet?
Can you give us a final yet? Avianca 052 Heavy.
Avianca 052.
Affirmative, sir. Turn left, heading 040. Climb and maintain 3,000.
Negative, sir. We are running out of fuel.
Okay, turn left, heading 310, sir.
Set flaps 14.
Okay, and you're number 2 for the
Approach. I just have to give you enough room so you can make it without
having to come out again.
Okay. We're number 2 and flying 360 now.
Avianca 052 Heavy, turn left, heading 330.
The lights in the aircraft start to flicker, a sign that the engines are being starved of fuel.
330 on the heading, Avianca 052.
Once there's no fuel flowing through the pump out of the tank, an amber light comes on to tell you that tank is empty.
Flame out! Flame out on engine number 4!
Flame out on it!
Flame out on engine number 3!
Cover the runway.
The passengers can hear the sound of the engines beginning to shut down.
When the engines went off, I looked over to the lady that was sitting next to me, and I asked her to give me her hand. And I philosophically accepted, I might die here. This is it.
Avianca 052, we just lost 2 engines, and we need priority, please.
Avianca 052.
Turn left, heading 250. Intercept the localizer.
250, roger.
Select the ILS.
ILS.
Avianca 052, you're 15
miles from the outer marker. Maintain 2,000 until established in the localizer. Cleared for ILS 22 left.
Roger, Avianca.
You select the ILS.
It's ready on 2.
When all the engines flame out and the generators fall off the line, a considerable amount of power is lost, electrical power is lost.
In the cabin, the screams, the crying, and then this terrible sound of the wind against the fuselage as the plane drops from the sky.
S03E14, radar contact lost.
Avianca's missing due to the weather thing.
Yeah, Avianca 52 lost an engine.
We're trying to find out why.
Yeah, we're no longer talking to Avianca. He's 15 northeast of Kennedy.
Ah, wonderful.
Clipper 18, turn left, heading 180.
6.5 hours after leaving Colombia, Avianca Flight 52 is missing somewhere over New York.
Yes, hello. I live in Cove Neck in Oyster Bay, and there is a plane crashed in our yard in front of our house.
When I woke up, I was the first thing that I did, I put my hand over here in my back, and I was bleeding. I said, "Oh my God, we crashed."
Both my legs were broken, and I had, blood all over the place.
El asiento en el que estaba sentada la hija mía, sí recuerdo que estaba.
The seat where my daughter was sitting was totally destroyed by pieces of steel that happened to have come from the wing.
Pedazos de hierro que entraron del ala y lo.
I found my baby Daniela amongst the pieces of a torn-up, twisted chair. And I picked her up like this, and she was drenched in blood.
Bañada en sangre.
Avianca Flight 52 has crashed on Long Island, New York, less than 28 kilometers from JFK Airport. From deep in the woods, medical technician Bob O'Brien can hear the survivors before he can see the shattered 707.
What I first heard was it were just some people who were crying in pain, but it was apparent immediately what had happened when the plane hit the mountain and just stopped dead.
It just fell out of the sky. That's how witnesses describe the crash of Avianca Flight 52. A strangely silent crash.
There was not a big fire here. That will make it easier for investigators to examine if there were any gas or engine problems.
There have been reports of lightning in the area just before the plane went down.
The spokesman for the Controllers Union says that Kennedy is critically understaffed, a problem that is compounded by bad weather.
Rescuers have not yet given up on finding more victims.
Lo primero que me acuerdo es que yo miro y
First thing I remember is that I looked up and I saw a priest. He was praying for me and I was lying down on the ground. Right above us, I saw 3 or 4 helicopters flying over us.
3 o 4 helicópteros volando encima mío.
Managed to get up on top of the fuselage, and there's that door handle that says, in case of emergency, pull here. So I pulled that door handle, and that door handle just went, and the door came open about 4 inches. And then I was able to flip that over, and I could just see piles and piles of people strapped in their seats.
The extreme G-force of the crash has broken off the cockpit and catapulted it through a stand of trees and into the deck of a home some 30 meters from the impact site.
Come on, somebody get the back here.
And I saw some cables, and I saw a big hole in the fuselage over the passengers that were sitting next to me who were kind of unconscious.
And on top of me was this guy who was bleeding, and big guy, I don't know who he was, but he was on top of me, but I was sitting.
I pulled myself with those cables towards that hole, which was over the wing.
I started screaming, "Hey, help me out, help me, take me out of here." And then somebody, when they realized that I was alive, they removed they took away the guy who was on top of me, and they took me out of the airplane.
At that moment, a fireman was climbing on the wing, and he saw me, and he said, "There's a guy here," and he pulled me out.
37 fire and rescue companies from Nassau County are quickly mobilized. The rescue is the largest pre-9/11 operation of its kind in the New York area.
That little girl was sitting up on the fuselage and she was crying, "Mi madre, mi madre." And that imprint of horror just was, you just in your mind's eye, focus right back in on
I saw mi madre, I saw her mother, and I know what that little girl was seeing. It was horrible enough for me, and I'm a professional rescuer.
Entonces yo inmediatamente me di cuenta. I realized that my baby was dying, so I began to scream. Please help me! I had the baby here, please.
The plane has crashed in the wealthy neighborhood of Cove Neck, near the home of the father of tennis star John McEnroe. Medics set up a makeshift triage unit on his lawn. When daylight breaks 10 hours later, 85 survivors have been pulled from the wreck. The lead flight attendant is the only member of crew to survive the crash. Of the 11 babies on board Flight 52, all but one are found alive. Bob O'Brien scours the tail section for survivors and finds FAA investigators struggling to remove the aircraft's black boxes.
I grabbed the handle and just pulled the whole box out and took that out and brought that out the door and gave it to them.
Even as people are being pulled from the wreckage, the on-site investigation begins. In charge on the ground is Barry Trotter of the National Transportation Safety Board. A former airline pilot, Trotter became an investigator after losing his right arm in a motorcycle accident.
The condition of the aircraft was really astonishing to see that that much of the structure was left in the condition that it was in.
Unaware of the details of Avianca's troubled flight, investigators quickly find a valuable piece of evidence.
You could look at the engines right away and you could tell the engines were not turning. So there was no power on the engines. That was the first big clue.
Trotter and his team examine the fuel tanks and find just a few gallons of jet fuel still on board. It becomes clear why the 707's engines stopped turning. But the question of who's to blame is still to be answered. In the community of Cove Neck, New York, salvage workers begin the task of dismantling the shattered remains of Avianca Flight 52. But there's still one critical question. Who is responsible for Flight 52 running out of fuel and causing the death of 72 passengers and crew? The answer will be worth millions of dollars and affect dozens of lives. At the lab of the National Transportation Safety Board in Washington, D.C., investigators are eager to recover data locked inside the two black boxes. The most telling of these is often the flight data recorder, which records critical information, such as the plane's altitude, airspeed, and heading.
When we recovered the flight data recorder and brought it to our lab in Washington, we opened it and found that the foil wrap was not hooked up. So someone had actually intentionally taped the end of the foil so it wouldn't fly around and put it back in the airplane.
Without the crucial flight data recorder, investigators rely heavily on Flight 52's cockpit voice recorder, which is found with more than 40 minutes of voice recordings of the crew and communications between the first officer and air traffic controllers.
Yes, sir, we are clear to land. Stand by. All set for landing. Below glide slope.
And it was apparent from the voice recorder transcript and tape that the captain was not understanding the first officer's radio communications that were being made in English.
Everybody wants to blame the pilot, but he may be the last person to make a decision, and the scenario which caused him to be in that position where he makes the decision was created by several other people along the route.
The captain asked the first officer about 9 times to clarify information or repeat it or to pass on information.
We are going to attempt again.
Advise him we are in an emergency. Do you tell him?
Did he make a conscious decision to run out of fuel? No. He was sucked into a situation by the air traffic controllers where he ran out of fuel.
Glide slow!
The cockpit voice recorder reveals a crew desperate to land the 707 in near zero visibility and in extreme wind shear without the aid of an autopilot.
In this case, the captain had a difficult time maintaining the glide slope during the approach with the wind shear, didn't see the airport, and had to make a go-around. That almost doomed the airplane at that point.
The information being given to pilots en route was a wind shear up as high as 1,500 feet. But their pilots on approach were encountering wind shear as low as 300 feet. And that wasn't passed on to the Avianca pilot.
This is the wind shear.
The crew of Flight 52 is caught off guard. As they descend below 150 meters and slow down, a violent vertical wind forces them towards the ground, nearly causing the plane to crash less than 4 kilometers short of the runway. Ironically, Avianca 52's lack of fuel resulted in no fire or explosion, saving the survivors from almost certain death.
If the flight would have found some level ground, it was conceivable he would have slapped the fuselage down and slid to a stop. With no fuel, there would have been no fire. And I think it's very possible that most of the people would have survived it in that case.
As the hearings into the crash begin, lawyer George Tompkins is confronted by controllers who maintain that the Avianca crew failed to use the word emergency, instead using the word priority to communicate their situation.
The government took the position that the pilot never declared an emergency, so no one knew that he had a problem. But saying you're getting low on fuel and saying you cannot make your alternate, the word emergency is not necessary to say.
Negative, sir. We are running out of fuel. We just lost 2 engines and we need priority, please.
And they thought they were telling them when they said we need priority.
Para nosotros en español la palabra prioridad significa.
In Spanish, for us the word priority means first.
Corre a mí, te estoy necesitando.
Attend to me, run to me. I need you right now.
No sé si es que
I don't know if priority in other languages means that you can wait.
Significa que puedes esperar.
Avianca 052 only has 5 more minutes in the hold. You gonna be able to take him, or I'll set him up to his alternate?
What is his speed now?
I'm not sure, to be quite honest with you. Holding speed.
The NTSB concludes that air traffic's handling of Avianca 52 was proper, considering the information they were getting from the flight crew. Many of the passengers are shocked and outraged by what they feel is a gross injustice, that air traffic control is found blameless. Avianca sues the Federal Aviation Administration, which employs the air traffic controllers, saying they should have done more when Flight 52 told them they were running out of fuel. The FAA settles and ends up paying around 40% of the estimated $200 million compensation due to the victims.
If you listen and read the tapes, the transcripts of the tapes of each air route traffic control center along the route, and the final to New York TRACON, New York Tower, Kennedy Tower, you'll find 20 places where this accident could have been avoided if somebody had done something differently.
Among the 85 survivors who escaped the shattered remains of Flight 52 are the Montoya's 2 daughters. Daniela, the baby covered in blood, is now a healthy teenager preparing for college.
The day just before the flight, we took a long trip to visit the Virgin Mary. This is a very important sanctuary in Medellin. Perhaps it was a miracle of God and the Virgin that the 4 of us survived. It was a miracle, and we feel blessed by that.
For many of the survivors, recovering from their injuries has been easier than coming to terms with the reason why Flight 52 ran out of fuel.
I had to learn to walk from scratch. It's difficult enough to deal with the injuries. It makes me very angry to think that a plane went down with 161 souls and had almost half the people lost their lives because of a word.